Today's lesson is about empowering your composition through the use of the M.O.V.E. method. You may be asking yourself, what is the M.O.V.E. method? It's actually a process that was developed to strengthen your writing, to make it more engaging, and ensure that your voice is heard through the writing. The first step is motivation. What is your motivation for writing? This is tied to your voice. The author's voice is their most powerful tool in writing. It helps you to portray a viewpoint or your story in a way that nobody else has. Understanding your voice is one of the most important parts of the writing process. Next comes orientation. And no, this isn't about the first day of school or a new job where they teach you where to go and the processes of the job. This is about, in composition, making sure you're pointed in the right direction. Clearly having a path that you intend to go through your writing. And that involves your audience. Understanding who your intended audience is for a given writing assignment or composition in general is imperative to ensure that your communication is effective and that you can engage that audience. Next step is validation. In this case, the validation comes through the revision process, where you revise and fine-tune your writing to ensure that your voice is clear and it is directed at that intended audience. And finally, education. No, I'm not expecting each of you to become teachers, but the writing process and composition in general is a powerful tool for education, not only in the academic setting, but in all facets of life. And this involves the different tools of communication. So let's get started with motivation. Motivation for this course, and your writing in this course, what would you say your primary motivation is? Lindy?
To get a good grade.
To get a good grade. Fair enough. That is what would be considered in many circles the primary motivation of students. But I must warn you, if your only motivation in your writing is to get a good grade, you will not do well in this course. And that's because you're not going to have passion, you're not going to show your voice, and you're not going to have an intended audience that's going to make that an engaging document for me to read if your only motivation is good grades. So let's make sure we got other motivations. To inspire that, I want to show you some of the things that composition is involved in the things that you enjoy. For example, TV shows. Almost every TV show has writers that have composed screenplays to make it what you enjoyed on the screen. The exception, but you're probably expecting, is reality TV, which also still has writers, but they don't do quite the same composition process we're talking about. There's also movies. All the famous movies that you know, everything that's connected with you emotionally, personally, has had a writer at its heart that has written the screenplay. All those lines, all the dialogue, and the plot and framework is designed by a writer. And then my personal favorite as a kid, and still today, are comic books. The narrative structure and composition in comic books is amazing. To understand and build your vocabulary at a level that most people wouldn't expect, comic books can be used. So now let's talk about your personal motivation, finding your voice. You will each be instructed and expected to have a clear voice in your writing. A writer's voice is not character alone. It is not style alone. It is far more. A writer's voice line, the stroke of an artist's brush, is the thumbprint of her whole person, her idea, her wit, humor, passions, and rhythms. Patricia Lee Gonch. And that's just to state, your voice is what's going to shape your writing in all aspects. Next, onto the orientation, getting you pointed in the right direction, which involves finding your intended audience. Most studies have shown that at your grade level and your level of academia, most students' intended audience that they believe is their instructor. But I'll also inform you, like I did before, I don't want to be your intended audience. All writing and composition should have an intended audience. I'm going to be grading your paperwork, but I should not be your final audience. You should always have somebody you're writing to, whether that's peers, whether that's a professional audience, whether that's your academic audience in general. That's fine, but never write just for me. You'll get much better grades and much better satisfaction in crafting a message that's written for intended audiences, such as those professional audience, like I said, and that goes beyond just screenwriters or speechwriters. All aspects and all jobs typically have some kind of composition, especially if it's a career level field. Then there's the academic, like we talked about. You're going to have your student writing, also peer-reviewed writing. You're writing for an academic audience. And then there's the personal writing. I know most of you will probably never write a pen and paper love letter to your significant other, but you still use composition in your daily writing. And building your strengths in your tool set for writing when it comes to personal writing is going to not only improve your relationships, but ensure that your messages are received in the way you intend them. And that includes texting, includes social media, and understanding composition on that level and that intended audience is as important as well. Nobody likes a run-on sentence in a social media post or gibberish in texting. Not only can that be no fun to read, it can also lose your message from the intended receiver. Now, validation. Admittedly, when I was your age, this was my least favorite part of writing. I didn't understand it. If I did a good enough job on my first draft, why would I need revision? Do it right the first time and you never have to do it again. But I've learned, as you will, that the revision process is vital to creating worthy writing that's going to truly engage your audience and clearly express your voice. The starting of the writing process obviously is planning. This is another struggle for me back in the day. Why would I want to plan? I already have an idea, I've got it formed out, let me just start writing. It's important to take the time not only to outline your writing so you have structure and form, but also take time to just brainstorm. That way you have a clear path and you're not really working on just trying to find the perfect words as you go. You've got a large pool to draw from. Then you'll actually do the writing. You'll receive feedback. This can both be internal feedback from yourself as well as external, whether it's classmates doing peer reviews or your grades from me and your revisions from me. And then you'll take that and you'll keep revising and polishing your writing until you get your final product. Margaret Atwood said, "If I waited for perfection, I would never write a word." You might recognize that name as the author of The Handmaid's Tale. This stage of the writing process is also great for the use of AI. You can use it for grammar as well as spell checking, which I know we all know and love. You can also use it for the flow and style of writing, but I will encourage you to never let an AI finish your writing for you, because you're going to lose your voice, which is going to lose your effectiveness of your writing. And as I said, it's one of your primary tools is having your voice. So it's clear to see when somebody uses AI as their final product because they've lost their voice, and that will result in a terrible grade. Quentin Tarantino said, "I've always equated the writing process with editing. Sort of like when I get through editing the movie. That's like my final draft of the screenplay." And I share that to just reiterate the importance of understanding that this is a process, and each of these stages are vital to getting a writing product that is at the top quality and ensuring both your voice and your intended audience are connected with. And finally, education. As I said, this isn't about you becoming teachers, but it is about making sure your message is effective and it can be a tool to connect with your intended audience. There's 4 different types of writing. The narrative form, we discussed that a little bit with those stories, as well as fictional tales, etc., poetry. Then there's analytical. This is an academic style, but it just really involves breaking down and analyzing a subject. Then there's persuasive, when you want to convince somebody of an argument or sway their opinion on a matter. Lindy, what would you say would be an effective form of persuasive writing in your everyday life?
We hear it in political speeches.
Great example. Politicians use persuasive writing all the time. We also see it in the news, even though it should be more disposition, which is the next, or exposition, which is the next form. We do see some persuasive writing all over. You also see it, as we talked about before, on social media, though most of it's not very well written. I think you all can agree. And that final type, exposition, is really just informative writing that does not include an opinion. You're not trying to sway anybody, you're just really trying to inform them and educate them on the subject. And this concludes our lesson on